At 1:52 a.m., the first contact appeared on the destroyer's surface search radar. It was small, low, and fast, barely a return at all against the clutter of the strait. The signal came from 14 nautical miles off the Iranian coast, near Larak Island, running without navigation lights, without a transponder code, holding a speed already past 22 knots. The radar operator didn't wait to confirm it twice. New surface contact. Bearing 0015, designate Romeo 1. Before the tactical action officer could respond, 3 more returns bloomed on the same screen, spread across 4 miles of open water, all converging toward the same patch of sea. Romeo 2 through 4 confirmed. 2 nautical miles east, a fully loaded tanker held its course through the 20-mile wide shipping lane, running at 12 knots, riding low under the weight of its cargo. It was the reason the destroyer was there at all, one link in a column of vessels waiting their turn through the strait while a war raged onshore, 100 miles inland. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tactical picture updated by the second. Romeo Group was Iranian Revolutionary Guard fast attack craft, the kind built to swarm rather than fight fair cheap hulls, armed with rocket pods, machine guns, and on some boats, short-range anti-ship missiles slung under improvised rails. Individually, none of them could threaten a warship built to fight nations. Together, closing from 3 bearings at once toward a slow, defenseless tanker, they didn't need to. Designate Romeo hostile track. Weapons tight, the tactical action officer ordered. Weapons tight meant fire only if fired upon first. Nobody in that room wanted to be the reason a tanker escort turned into an act of war before sunrise. Not with the region already burning. The destroyer's captain didn't change course enough to signal alarm. Instead, the ship began closing the gap between itself and the tanker, cutting the angle Romeo Group would need to reach it. 2 miles east, an MH-60R lifted off the flight deck and banked low over black water, running dark, its forward-looking infrared already locked onto the lead boat's wake. At 1:58, Romeo Group split. 2 boats peeled toward the tanker's stern quarter. The other 2 held bearing on the destroyer itself, closing at nearly 30 knots. On the helicopter's infrared feed, the sensor operator caught the outline of a crew-served weapon uncovered on the lead boat's bow, a second crewman moving toward it. Range 4,000 yards and closing, the sensor operator called. The bridge-to-bridge radio crackled with a warning, repeated once in English, ignored. The destroyer's captain made the call before the range closed further. Illuminate Romeo lead element. A searchlight swept the black water and locked onto the boat's hull, followed a half-second later by a targeting laser from the ship's fire control radar, unmistakable to anyone watching a scope on the receiving end. Nobody needed a translator for what had just been pointed at them. For 6 seconds, nothing changed. Then the lead boat peeled hard to port, and the one behind it followed. To the east, the pair chasing the tanker's stern didn't break off. They kept closing, weapons uncovered, engines wide open. At 2:03, the sensor operator's voice sharpened. Romeo 3 has a weapon mounted, believed to be a short-range anti-ship missile, elevation changing. The destroyer's captain authorized a warning burst from the 25mm chain gun. Rounds walked deliberately across open water 200 yards ahead of the boat's bow. Not a hit, a message. The message didn't land. Romeo 3 held course, and at 2:04 a.m., a bright flash lit the infrared feed as the boat fired. Missile launch bearing 090, target the tanker. The call went out across the formation before the object had traveled a mile. The destroyer's close-in weapon system, already spun up and tracking, didn't wait for a fire order to reach a human being. Its own radar picked up the incoming object, calculated an intercept solution in under 2 seconds, and opened fire automatically, a stream of tungsten rounds converging on a point 800 yards off the destroyer's port bow. The missile broke apart in a shower of orange fragments over open water, well short of the tanker's hull. Romeo 3 didn't get a second shot. The MH-60R's crew, watching the launch in real time, had already selected an attack solution. This time, nobody hesitated. A single hellfire left the helicopter's rail and struck the boat amidships. The other 3 vessels of Romeo Group scattered east at flank speed, and for the first time in 12 minutes, every plotted track on the display was moving away from the tanker instead of toward it. But the strike group commander had already learned enough that night to know a missile boat swarm was rarely the whole plan. At 2:11, a sonar operator aboard the second destroyer in the screen flagged something new, a faint, low-frequency contact, holding position near a marked shipping buoy less than a mile from the main channel, exactly the kind of spot where moored mines had turned up twice already that month in that stretch of the strait. Possible mine-laying signature designates Sierra 1. Nobody treated it as nothing. Not in these waters, not this month, not with the war onshore already 18 American lives deep. An MH-60R crossed low over the buoy and caught for less than 2 seconds on infrared, the shape of a cylindrical object being lowered rather than lifted over the side of a small unlit craft. Confirm possible mine-laying activity vicinity Sierra 1. The report reached the strike group commander before the helicopter finished its transmission. The tanker was already past the danger area by then, but 6 more ships were queued over the horizon, waiting their turn through the strait, and the shipping lane behind the convoy wasn't clear. A U.S. Navy mine countermeasures ship, staged 20 miles south for exactly this reason, got the diversion order within a minute. An unmanned underwater survey drone hit the water 9 minutes later, mapping the seabed around the buoy meter by meter, while the destroyer held its position. Radar locked, gun crews still closed up. At 2:34, while the survey drone worked, the tactical picture changed again. A P-8A Poseidon, on routine patrol 80 miles east, reported a fresh contact of its own. 2 small Iranian patrol craft moving fast and low along the coastline, trailed a moment later by what its sensor operator called a probable one-way attack drone, launched from a position near the shore and climbing toward the shipping lane. Designate track Uniform 1, believed hostile, altitude 400 feet and climbing. The destroyer's air defense team didn't wait for the drone to close within visual range. Its air search radar had the track locked within seconds of the Poseidon's report, and the ship's 5-inch gun crew, already at general quarters, brought the mount to bear on a firing solution before the drone crossed 10 miles out. At 2:38, with the object at 6 miles and holding a course directly toward the formation, the destroyer fired. The round found the drone on the second salvo, a brief flash low over the water, and the contact vanished from every screen in the strike group. By 2:50, the survey drone had its answer from the seabed near the marked buoy. A single object, roughly the size and shape of a moored contact mine, resting at an angle that suggested it had been placed in a hurry and not yet armed. Not the first one found in that stretch of channel in 2 weeks. Unlikely to be the last. The strike group commander didn't wait for the mine to be cleared before ordering the formation reshuffled. A third destroyer, held in reserve 15 miles south, was ordered forward to close the gap in the screen while the mine countermeasures ship worked. Its captain acknowledged and brought the ship to 25 knots, cutting the distance in under 20 minutes. At 3:12, the tactical picture shifted again, this time from the coast itself. A shore-based radar operator monitoring Iranian coastal batteries flagged unusual activity near a mobile launcher site that had gone quiet for 6 days. Heat signatures consistent with missile preparation. The report moved up through the strike group's air defense net within 90 seconds. Every ship in the formation shifted its air search radars to cover the bearing. At 3:19, the launcher fired. A single anti-ship cruise missile broke off the coast at low altitude, skimming barely 50 feet above the water, its own guidance system hunting for the largest radar return in the strait. That return belonged to the tanker still working its way through the channel, 3 miles behind the reserve destroyer now closing to screen it. Missile inbound, bearing 310, speed 600 knots. The report reached every combat information center in the formation before the missile had covered 5 miles. The newly arrived destroyer's air defense officer didn't hesitate. An SM-2 left the forward launcher within 11 seconds of a firing solution, climbing hard before rolling over into a dive toward the incoming track. The intercept happened 9 miles off the destroyer's bow, a bright, brief flash low over the water, and the missiles remained scattered into the sea well short of any hull in the strait. Ashore, the launcher that had fired it didn't get a second attempt. A flight of carrier-based Super Hornets, already airborne on a strike package unrelated to the strait, was redirected within minutes. By 3:41, the site had been struck and the launcher confirmed destroyed by a follow-on reconnaissance pass. For the next hour, the strait went quiet in a way that felt deliberate rather than reassuring. The destroyers held position. The Poseidon widened its search pattern along the coastline. The mine countermeasures team kept working the seabed near the buoy, moving with the unhurried caution the job demanded, because a rushed disposal was its own kind of failure. At 3:52, the quiet broke from an unexpected direction. 40 miles east, outside the strike group's immediate screen, a bulk carrier flying a flag of convenience radioed a distress call on the emergency channel. 2 unmarked speedboats had pulled alongside without warning, armed men aboard, one boat attempting to make fast a grappling line to the carrier's stern rail, while the other held station off the bow. The ship's master had ordered the crew below and locked into the citadel, the same procedure drilled into every merchant crew transiting the strait since the war on shore had begun spilling into these waters months earlier. The Poseidon overhead redirected within 2 minutes, dropping to a lower altitude to get eyes on the scene and relay real-time video to the strike group. What its cameras showed matched a pattern the intelligence staff had seen build over the past several weeks, not a fast attack swarm meant to sink a ship, but a boarding attempt meant to seize one, a tactic Iran had leaned on before when it wanted leverage rather than wreckage. A destroyer already screening the western approach to the strait altered course to close the distance, working out to 29 nautical miles in under 40 minutes at flank speed. It was still too far to intervene directly, but its presence on the bulk carrier's own radar, growing steadily closer, was itself a message the boarding party couldn't ignore. So was the MH-60R, now orbiting directly overhead, holding a visible weapons posture without firing a shot. Its crew broadcasting a warning over bridge to bridge that the vessel was under observation by a U.S. Navy asset, and that any harm to the crew would be treated accordingly. At 4:11, the grappling line came loose, cut rather than released, and both speedboats peeled away from the carrier's hull and ran east at high speed toward Iranian waters. The bulk carrier's master confirmed his crew intact and the ship undamaged. No shots had been fired in that encounter at all. Sometimes the deterrent didn't need to be a weapon. It only needed to be a destroyer's bow wave growing larger on somebody else's screen. By 4:20, a second suspect object was found 900 yards from the first, resting in a shallower part of the channel directly beneath where a loaded tanker would pass within the hour. This one showed fresher paint and a mooring cable still taut, evidence it had gone into the water in the last 2 days rather than the last 2 weeks. The disposal team adjusted course toward it immediately, and the strike group commander ordered the convoy's next transit, held at the entrance to the strait until both objects were cleared. An explosive ordnance disposal team went into the water at first light. By 6:20 a.m., the first device had been neutralized in place, logged, photographed, and reported up the chain as evidence of a deliberate attempt to close the lane behind the morning's convoy. The second followed 40 minutes later, defused without incident, its mooring cable cut, and the mine itself recovered intact for exploitation by naval intelligence. No missile had reached a tanker, no mine had detonated beneath a hull, no American ship had taken a hit, no merchant crew had been taken hostage. In the space of roughly 3 hours, Iranian forces had tried 5 separate ways to turn a routine transit through the strait into a casualty count or a hostage crisis, or a missile boat swarm, a one-way attack drone, a coastal cruise missile, an attempted boarding 40 miles away, and a minefield laid in the dark along the main channel Oizu Road. And every attempt had been found, tracked, and stopped before it reached anything that mattered. None of it had required the strike group to fire the first shot. Every engagement that night had begun with an Iranian weapon already in the air or in the water. And every American response had been aimed at stopping that weapon, not at escalating past it. That distinction mattered to the officers running the tactical picture as much as the outcome did. A war already burning across the region didn't need a naval incident in the strait to widen it further, and for one night, the strike group's job had been to make sure it didn't get one. By 5:30, the mine countermeasures ship reported the channel clear along its full surveyed length, and the strike group commander lifted the hold on convoy traffic. By 6:45, the delayed ships resumed their run through the strait, tankers spaced and screened, the reserve destroyer now permanently folded into the formation. The western picket adjusted to cover the approach where the boarding attempt had unfolded hours earlier. Overhead, the Poseidon handed its patrol off to a relief aircraft and turned for home, having spent the entire night airborne without landing once. The ship that had stood in the middle of the night's first engagement was still exactly where it started. Radar up, gun crews rotating off alert status in shifts, waiting for whatever came out of the dark toward the next ship in line. On shore, the war that had put them there showed no sign of slowing down, its strikes and counterstrikes running on their own separate clock 100 miles from the water. In the strait itself for one morning, nothing that mattered had gotten through, and the tankers that needed to move kept moving, exactly as they had before. The first contact of the night ever appeared on a screen.